In the mid-century Australian suburb, the church wasn't the only place you went for a communion. There was another sanctuary, one that smelled of floor wax, roasted peanuts, and the high sugar scent of musk sticks. The milk bar. It was a 20th century marvel of community, a neon-lit cathedral of the corner lot. It was where you went for a loaf of tip-top, a pack of Winfields, or a milkshake so thick it defied the laws of physics and common sense. My grandfather once told me that, back then, the milk bar wasn't just a shop, it was the town's social GPS. If you weren't at home or at work, you were leaning against a chrome stool, dissecting the cricket scores over a ginger beer. But if you look past the lolly jars and the formica counters, you'll find a story that is less about dairy and more about the desperate, beautiful audacity of the Australian migrant dream. To understand the milk bar, you have to understand the Hellenic diaspora. In the wake of war and poverty, thousands of Greek migrants arrived on our shores. They didn't just bring their families, they brought a Mediterranean philosophy of hospitality, the philoxenia. They saw the Australian corner store, which, at the time, was a drab utilitarian affair, and they reimagined it. They added mirrors, chrome, and Art Deco curves. Essentially, they were the original disruptors, only instead of apps, they traded in malted milk and a very specific kind of neighbourhood gossip. I almost remember the man behind the counter. Let's call him Mr. Papadopoulos. He wore a crisp white apron and a solemn expression that suggested he was guarding the crown jewels rather than a jar of fantails. Behind the bead curtain in the back, the real engine of the business hummed, his wife and children. While other kids were out at the footy, the milk bar kids were out back, bagging 3-cent lollies or scrubbing the grease off the fryers. It was a family unit bound together by the relentless rhythm of the doorbell and the shared goal of making sure the next generation never had to stand behind a counter for 18 hours a day. For the shopkeeper, the milk bar was a grueling gamble. These families were the neighbourhood's silent witnesses, the people who knew exactly which brand of tea you liked, and exactly which of the local teenagers was currently passion-dashing behind the bins. My grandfather told me he could never get away with a single prank as a kid, because the shopkeeper had eyes in the back of his head, and a direct line to every mother on the street. For a child in the 1960s, the milk bar was the first place you ever practiced high-stakes negotiation. You had 20 cents and a world of choices. The shopkeeper would wait with a patience that could only be described as saint-like, as you pointed at the glass case, agonizing over the specific ratio of cobbers to bananas. It was the only place in the world where a 5-year-old could feel like a high-rolling venture capitalist with a pocket full of copper coins. Then there was the milkshake. Not the tepid, plastic-cupped versions of today. These were served in heavy metal tins that stayed cold enough to preserve a woolly mammoth. They were frothy, aerated masterpieces, flavoured with syrups that bore only a passing, legal resemblance to actual fruit. My grandfather swears that a real chocolate malted could cure anything from a broken heart to a flat bike tyre. And of course, the Chiko roll, an industrial miracle of cabbage and mystery, designed to be eaten with one hand while the other held the handlebars of a Malvern star. It wasn't exactly haute cuisine, but in 1974, a deep-fried tube of ambiguous vegetables was the height of suburban luxury. You could say it was rolling in the deep, fryer. History, however, is really kind to the middleman. By the 1980s, the giants arrived. Supermarkets and 24-hour petrol stations began to offer the same essentials with the cold efficiency of a spreadsheet. The milk bar didn't vanish overnight. It was a slow, quiet retreat. One by one, the neon signs flickered out. The Greek families who had put their children through university on a diet of malted milks eventually retired, and their children, now doctors and lawyers, decided they'd rather deal with litigious clients than the 6 a.m. delivery of the afternoon papers. Today, if you look hard enough, you can still find a few survivors. These modern milk bars aren't the same. Some have pivoted to artisanal gelato, while others, like the reborn Rio in Summer Hill, have leaned into the aesthetic with Greek-style cocktails and spiked milkshakes. They are no longer the utilitarian lifelines of the street, but they are absolutely worth visiting. They are live-in museums where the Laminex is still chipped in the same places, and the air still feels a little thicker with history. They remind us that before we were a nation of users and customers, we were neighbours. We call it nostalgia, but it's actually a form of mourning. We miss the milk bar not because we're desperate for a bag of mixed sweets, but because we miss the idea that a shop could be the heartbeat of a street. The Aussie milk bar was a brief, shining moment where the migrant dream met the suburban appetite. It was a place where everyone was welcome, as long as you had a few coins and didn't mind waiting for the hiss of the Hamilton Beach mixer to finish its song. They are mostly gone now, replaced by the convenience of the digital age. But if you walk past a certain corner in the quiet part of town, you can still almost hear the rattle of the fridge and the ghost of a bell announcing that, for a few minutes at least, you've come home. It was, quite literally, the cream of the crop. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you could give us a like or share it with a friend. Until next time.